Hello everyone, welcome to a rather short video on Star Wars The Old Republic, and this video is going to be on the question of group content. So at the latest Cantina event, which was happening at Star Wars Celebration in London, the developers answered some very important questions regarding group content. Although I personally don't engage a lot in operations and flashpoints and stuff like that, it is a huge question in the community because a lot of people are wanting new group content. And there's also a lot of people who have been saying they're really close on the edge of unsubscribing. Some people have already unsubscribed just because they've become so disenfranchised with the game on the basis that there haven't been any new operations, flashpoints, and that kind of new group PvE content. So the developers answered some very important questions in terms of whether there's going to be new group content and why no announcements and stuff have been made. So let's get right into it. The first question is why so many questions have been ignored. So obviously a lot of the community has been asking, when is we getting new group content? Can you at least announce to us so we know that if you're going to take a year or 1.5 years to make it, at least we know that we're getting it at some point in time. And so their answer was it actually comes down to the Shadow of Revan. They had said that they had obviously announced the Shadow of Revan expansion, and they said they were going to announce details and specifics on the new expansion. However, they had to delay their announcement because of unknown complications. And although they only delayed that announcement for a day, and then remember, they were only announcing details of the expansion, but they had to delay it for a day. But they said there was so much negative reaction to that it overshadowed the whole expansion and ruined the build-up of the expansion. And honestly, you guys have to understand that that's a very important thing for these guys. When they're announcing new expansions, they have to build up the hype. They have to make sure that there's a certain build-up for it so that enough people are actually going to be hyped up and incentivized to buy it. And that's a whole really technical thing. They have people that are responsible for that. People like the community managers who are meant to make sure that they have built up enough hype and everything like that. And so obviously that's a very important thing for them, and that's why they don't announce any new things. So when they say they haven't been out there announcing this is when you're getting group content, this is when we're going to make that announcement, this is the kind of group content we're going to give you, because of that negative reaction and what happened with Shadow of Revan. And so that's kind of why they're staying silent on certain topics. And then he also kind of said something here. He said, what can I say about new ops? Well, remember, when for like a year, all people asked about was more PvP, more PvP, more PvP, and then, well, bang, we released not one, but 2 new PvP war zones, which are the Rishi and Odessen war zones. Okay, then they said that at the cantina he left a suggestive facial expression, which means they're obviously coming up with op content. They are coming up with new operations, and they said it's not just a little bit, it's going to be a lot, because remember he mentioned people were asking for just new PvP stuff, and they came out with 2 new war zones and 1 whole new war zone mode. So obviously they're coming up with new operations. They have that on the table, and he said, like, we're coming up with it, we just can't announce it. They're not allowed to because of what happened with Shadow of Revan. Now the second question was basically just the same thing. She asked, or he or she asked, I know you can't confirm anything, but if I was to go around telling people that it's ridiculous to think that the game will ever have new group content or ops, would I be right to say that, or would there be a chance I could end up being proved wrong? So it's basically what I just said. You know, can people just say, basically just say, yeah, they're coming out with new ops, they just can't announce it? And then they said, we can never say never, but we know what people want and we know what everyone is asking for, but things take time and we can only focus on certain areas at a time. So actually they make a very good point here. They said that, look, they are keeping in touch with what the community wants. They know what people are asking for, and they obviously want to provide that, right? They're not saying we're not going to provide operations because they know people are unsubscribing or becoming disenfranchised with the game without these new PvE content. They're obviously time complications. They need to work on it. They need to come up with stuff. But a point that they made, I'm not sure if it was in this question or a later question, was that people always ask for things. So let's say a few months ago, people have been asking for a certain thing to be added in game, like the PvP stuff, and then if they start working on new PvP war zones and modes and stuff like that, and then like a few months later people are saying we want new ops content, well, they have to finish working on the PvP stuff before they can start working on the ops content. And so although they have it on the back of their minds, they're like, okay, that's something we need to work on, they need to finish that earlier thing, that earlier project that they started. So keep in mind that these kinds of complications are out there for them, but they do have the ops content on their mind, the new PvE stuff, new flashpoints, new story arcs, things like that, and they are thinking about doing it, and they are definitely going to come out with new PvE group content. That's just like, yeah, they will. There's really no question about it. as they say here. But you know, if the community asks for something and then it takes us 6 months to do that thing, but 3 months into that 6 month period the community start asking for another thing, then we can't just stop or divert away from the current thing. That doesn't mean that we haven't taken it on board or that we are ignoring you guys. These things take time, and honestly I feel like that's a very, very valid point. I'm not a game developer. I don't know how long things take, so I'll just take their word for it that they are trying their best, they are trying hard, and they are coming out with new content. It's not like it's been a year and a half and they haven't come out with anything. They did in some way please the PvP community by coming out with those new war zones. Yeah, so this is just about the negativity, not too concerned about that. Will there be new ops? So basically the same question was asked again, and then once again he's saying don't worry at all. They can't go out and just announce that they're gonna be coming out with new operations because of what they said about Shadow of Revan. And honestly, it's just probably a constriction that's placed upon them. Like, they know they're coming out with new operations. They probably have tons of information that they want to share with the community, but they can't because they have those restrictions on them from the higher ups in the company, right? If someone says you can't announce new stuff until we tell you you can announce it, then they basically can't announce it. So that's why. But he's basically telling you guys in this answer that yeah, there is going to be new ops content. So definitely, for anyone that's out there who's waiting for this group content, it's coming. It might take some time, and it might be smart that if you're really waiting for that, to just unsubscribe for now and then resubscribe when the new ops content is announced to be released. But it is coming at some point in the future. Alright, now here's something I want to quickly talk about. So we're done with the stuff about the new ops content. That's basically what I wanted to talk about. It was some questions which I feel have been answered, and so maybe that'll help out some of the people who are really waiting and are highly anticipating the new group content. But let's quickly talk about new classes, because this is definitely something that's been talked about with the announcement of the expansion of Knights of the Eternal Throne. Are we going to have new classes and new storylines? Now, initially I thought, wow, it's a possibility, and I thought it was. But after reading these answers, maybe it's not so much a possibility. So they've said that new classes is something that we've discussed for a long time. It's something I think we all would like to do, but adding them to the original story is not possible, and that's totally understandable. The original story of the 8 classes and what's happening with the whole Empire versus the Republic, that's fine. We have 8 storylines there. I don't expect them to add a new storyline. It is very complicated to do that. However, they said, you know, it is possible to add it with the new expansion. This is a completely new story. You have the Zakul faction, which is actually a separate faction in game. You know, it's separate from the Empire and the Republic. You could totally add in some Zakul classes that have Zakul specific abilities and a storyline associated with that. And they said that adding them to later expansions could work, but then they have to deal with something else, which is the class balances. A lot of people might simply complain about the new classes and not want them in the game due to balancing. So after hearing that, I'm thinking, oh, okay, like if it was that that they're going to be releasing new classes, I don't think they would have added that in there. I mean, seeing that the balancing is going to become an issue, it just kind of casts some doubt, although I don't see why that's a big issue. Like, just sit down and deal with how to deal with the balancing changes, because the fact of the matter is, new classes and new storylines would really revive this game, and that's what I really want. I want this game to be revived. Although there are still so many players and the game is not dead by a long shot, having more players, a better economy, things like that would definitely make the game, you know, enhance the experience of the game for people like me who have been playing for many years. And so I would definitely love to have new classes and new storylines to play through. And then, will the future expansions be episodic or released in monthly intervals? No information was really given about that, but personally I don't care. Either way, I'm fine with it. So those are some of the questions that were answered at the Cantina event, and definitely it deals a lot with the group content, so hopefully that provides you guys with some answers if you were looking for that new ops, new flashpoints. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys found it informative, and I'll see you in the next one.